What's it like working with apprentices? I've got the fantastic Laura Sheridan, Group Spa Director of Champneys, with me today to talk more about their apprenticeship scheme. Laura, thank you for joining me.
Hello, you're welcome. Thanks for having
You,
me.
wow, you are super passionate about education with our industry, and I know that you've been working really closely with Diane Hay on the apprenticeship scheme at Champneys. Can you tell us a bit more about how you became involved with working with apprentices, please?
So it started when I started with Champneys 7 years ago as head of education. And actually, I'd never worked with apprentices before. And one of my first tasks was to launch the Champneys apprenticeship scheme. So it was very, very new to me. And I didn't know anything about it. I did a lot of research, but I definitely wasn't an expert. So we decided to go with an outside provider who would um, teach and train our apprentices, and that's when I met Diane, who is fantastic. I met
Yeah,
her 7 years ago, it is now, and just under, and she is the font of all knowledge of apprenticeships,
yeah.
and it's such a difficult and big topic to get your head around if you've never entered in the world of apprenticeships before. There's so many rules, regulations. It can be quite daunting. So it was really important that we had someone that was a real expert and we could trust and rely on because we've got a reputation to uphold. So I first chatted with Diane, and then I think it took us about 6 months before we actually launched. So we're probably in about year six of apprenticeships now. Yeah.
And how many, you told me some incredible numbers. You have how many apprentices on schemes today?
Okay, so we have normally around 40 at the
Wow.
same time, all in different cohorts, that is, and all at different levels. However, in our 100th year, which was last year, we were at 100 apprentices that we'd trained throughout this 5 years, and that was when we counted, that was, like mid last year. So we're probably at about 150 now that we've had come through our doors.
It's incredible. I mean,
Huge.
I've spoken to Amara as well, one of your apprentices. Um, how does it actually work in the practical sense, though, of having apprentices within your business as an employer? Because I think, a lot of employers think, oh, I might give it a go. They're not really sure about the practical sense of it. I mean, you obviously have a lot at once, but people could start with just a couple, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think you've got to be aware before taking on apprenticeships that there is they need time. So if you're a really, really busy person in your role and you haven't got the time to spend with the apprenticeships, you need a designated person. I think whether it's two, five, 20, you need a dedicated person that can
Yeah.
give them the time. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of rules, regs, a lot of admin. But also they're brand new, the girls come to us at 16 a lot. I say girls, we have boys as well. A lot of them are 16. Some of them have never even had a job before. So, we think about when we take on therapists that are straight from college, how um, I kind of, I call them the babies, that they were the babies that came through. Now some of these people have never, some of these therapists have, never even earned a penny. So, or had a job.
They're
So
16, aren't they? They're 16 years old.
16.
They've come straight from school. They've never left home. They've never necessarily worked. So you really do have to kind of support them, don't you, I guess?
Yeah, and we teach, and between myself and Diane, they have to go and stay up in Selby, up in the north, and we have to teach them things like, well, more Diane than me, how to use a washing machine. Like there's so much to it. They don't know how to cook. And actually, so many of them have never been away from home, and suddenly they have to fend for themselves. Um, and I guess there's so much more to it than just when they're in the business. And I always say, if you take apprentices on, it's a 24-hour job because they could need you at any time, and we have an obligation, a safeguarding obligation. So it is kind of round the clock. So to try and do it without someone whose focus can be apprenticeships would be difficult. So yeah, I would say for those that are thinking of, you need to have someone that can dedicate time, because it only works if you dedicate time to the apprentices and they feel cared for, and you can't rush them out the door.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that Amara raised when the apprentice who's on your scheme with you, she said what she really enjoyed was actually how all the team welcomed her. Everyone was offering support. She would learn the massage element, come in, and the team would give her the opportunity to practice, but also give her feedback to make her really confident in her treatments.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many people that are involved, and everyone knows that it's my baby. So I'm always, we have trainers, we have an administrator, I have Lucy, who's our education manager. I'm still heavily involved. We have our group spa managers, we have spa manager supervisors, prem therapist support. There's so many that are involved in their journey that they get the support from all angles.
Does it work with, so they do their training, they'll go to Diane up in Selby, they'll do their, say, massaging element. They then come back, but in the meantime, they're still working for you, but before they do that and afterwards, aren't they?
Yeah, so Diane and I designed our apprenticeship scheme together as to how we wanted it to look because it was very important it worked for the business. So one thing that we did is put massage as the first thing they learn, and we've put massage into level two. Whereas, if we'd have done it the original way, we would have had them trained in waxing nails, all those level two aspects that we don't really need. Obviously we
Mm.
train them in that, but that's not useful to us as a business. So we designed it so they do massage first. So they join us and we have them on screen with a guest within the first 3 months, and that is doing a massage. Now, the guests know it's an apprentice, it's half price, they know they're practicing, they feed out,
That's
feedback
brilliant to
forms,
know.
but
Yeah.
they're 3 months in, and when they do their first guest, but actually, we have a lot of apprentice treatments. So, for instance, our wave bed, our floats, our Razoles, they're doing from the second week in the business. So they
So
are
they get that
revenue
immediate,
generating.
I was about to say, so they get immediately revenue generating and
Yeah,
immediately guest facing. They're not just there cleaning behind the scenes, they're actually hands on in the business for you.
yeah, straight away. It's really important because, I remember when I was at college, I was terrified when I got my first job, 2 years after being in college. And
Yeah.
it was so terrifying. I see why a lot of people didn't actually move forward and do it because you've been like shielded in college for 2 years, whereas these girls are right, with guests straight away. So they learn the behavior, they learn how to communicate properly, so they're learning from day one.
Yeah, I think that's some of the concern in the spa industry at the moment, isn't it? That you have a lot of therapists who do leave after 2 years. They come and work in a spa and they just haven't got that on the job training. So I guess that's the real, you obviously have a therapist at the end, but also that's a really huge benefit of an apprenticeship, isn't it, for you as a business manager?
Yeah, and you get a lot of people that also join that haven't, they haven't been educated on what it's like to work in a spa, and it is so hard, and it is, relentless, and
Hmm.
you know, I remember being a therapist. It is such hard work, harder than my job now. So, I we get a lot of people that would come and then leave because they're like, oh my God, I can't handle this type of work because they
Yeah.
weren't primed for it. Whereas, with our therapists, our apprentices, we gradually lead them in. So we put them on screen initially 4 hours a day. And then they have 4 hours of
Ah,
treatments, 4 hours of maybe doing some work, some practicing, obviously the duties around the spa. Then we increase it to 6, and then we increase it to 8 when they move on to level 3. So they've already been in the business a year. So we kind of manage it. So we don't throw them in the deep end, but they're clear what their progress is and where
yeah.
we expect them to be after the first year.
And do you find that the person who goes on the apprenticeship, the girl or the boy, do you find them yourselves through advertising for them, or does Diane help you find them? How does that work with the kind of recruiting element, I guess,
Yeah,
into an
so
apprenticeship?
the recruiting is a long process because we have to be really, really sure on who we bring on because obviously there's so
Hmm.
much investment and time. So they go through a strict, so Diana will advertise for us and they'll go through a strict recruitment process before they actually come to us, and then we go through a full recruitment
Ah,
day.
oh,
So
wow.
they've been through like all of the checks with Diane, because there's only checks that need to be done, and then they'll have a recruitment call, and so they're already vetted before they come to us, and then they come to us
Right.
for the day, and we do a number of things. We go through obviously the resort, what it's like, because again, we're so huge, it's quite daunting.
Hmm.
They go through, we go through what it's like working at Champneys, what our expectations are, and we were really quite clear. In a way, we try and put them off because we're like, this is really
Oh,
hard. We need them to
I've never
understand.
heard someone say that's brilliant that you
I
like
do
here's
that
the
with
reality.
everyone because I don't want people ever coming into the business saying you sold a dream and it's really hard. No, it's really hard, and if you still want it, great. But if you don't want to work hard, then fine. But I need to tell you it's tough. I'm
I
not
love
going to
that.
say
I love
it's
that.
easy. You'll have a great time. Chill out. No, no, it's tough. So and then we actually get them to do a little hand and arm massage on each other, because it's so funny, because some of these potential apprentices have probably never like touched someone in that way. So
Ah.
we get to this point and we've had people that say, "Oh no, I don't want to touch anyone," or "Oh no, I'm never touching feet," and then we go, "Okay, tick, this is not for you." And we get to see how they interact. We have an interview process. We also have current apprentices come in and talk to them. So it's a full day of recruitment before we offer at the end. Um,
That's really interesting,
yeah,
and
so
you
you
run
have
that.
to be really astringent, because the worst thing that can happen is if they start and then drop out, because that affects everything. So you need to be really sure that who you're recruiting, I mean, you can't always be 100%, but you need to be sure that they're in it, because, this is their dream job and they're in it for the
Mhm.
long haul.
Yeah, it's a massive commitment as a business, isn't it? Because you're saying, right, we're taking you through this entire training session. You don't want to start training, getting them embedded into the business, and then find that it's not right for them. So I love that you're so on it. You're
Yeah,
like, this is hard.
yeah. It
I
is
mean,
hard. And,
what
even Diane will say, there are times when you'll really hate me, and, there'll be tears. And she said, but in the end, you'll thank me. And, when they get to the end, they was like, thank you. But at the time, they're like, this is relentless. Like boot
what do
camp.
you like, but working, I think it's a really good opportunity. Like I've always loved
Yeah.
using apprentices because not only do they come into the business and you have a great employee at the end, but actually they give your team a boost as well because they've got that
Hmm.
young energy, they're keen to learn, they're excited to be there. So yeah, maybe it is a bit boot camp and it is a hard job, but it also does a lot for the rest of the team as
Yeah,
well, I
yeah. It's
think.
really rewarding.
And so what do you think like other SPLA employers need to understand before they hire apprentices? Are there any misconceptions that you feel need changing or advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think, before I started working with apprentices, I wanted to do it, but I guess I wasn't clear that one, I could have them generating revenue from day one. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to train them, pay for their training 5 days a week. But actually, they work with us and they go training one day a week. And
Hmm.
then we have big blocks. So we do the training in like week blocks, and then they do one day a week every week. So also, all our apprentices are 32 hours, so we don't put them on 40 hours, because, I mean, we did in the beginning, but it affected that they're not ready to work a 40-hour job, mostly. So we put them on 32 hours, and one day is their learning day. So they're in the business 3 days a week, and then off-site learning one day a week. Um, I guess it's really important to know that it's really hard work, and when I had the first group, we just had 8, and it was like a dream. But now when you've got 40 odd, you need to be committed, and you need to understand that you need to be patient, and you need to understand that actually at one point, before I moved into this role, apprenticeships were nearly my full-time job. It wasn't, but at the time I could have had it as my 5 day a week job, just managing the whole, and that's even with an outside training provider. That's not even us delivering the training, because of all the moving parts. all the different locations, so you have to, it won't work if you don't dedicate the time to it, and you need to be patient.
Things that I think keeps coming up in what you're saying, if I'm just picking up on it, it's that relationship with the trainer, isn't it? It's
Mm.
you've got to have that open communication. It's not you and them. It's a joint program. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time when Diane and I would speak every single day. She would call me, or I would call her 9 o'clock at night. Something, if there's an apprentice on site at Selby and there's an issue, which, you've got a group of 16 to 18-year-old girls, 20
Okay.
odd of them,
Yeah.
there's constant issues. Um, and we would pick up a call. There's times when they've been stuck getting trains home on a weekend, and you Diane and I are like, we worked together so closely for that long period of time. And she still works just as hard. It's just I've taken a little step back from it, but still there's
Yeah.
not a week that goes by that I don't have to speak to Diane about something to do with apprenticeships in the business. So the most important thing is your provider, because also I know I can send them to Selby and to Armonia, and they're not allowed in the room if they haven't got their hair in a bun, or they'll get, their standards are as high as ours. So I
Yeah.
know, and when they come back and they'll say, oh, Diane didn't tell us to take our nose ring out, and I absolutely know she did. She would,
Yeah.
they love to play us off against each other and say, well, am I allowed to do that there? And the same with Champneys. But because we know each other so well and work so closely together, that's the most important thing, to have someone you can rely on as your provider, because at the end of the day they're giving you, teaching the therapist that then you've got to do treatments on your own, clients, and it falls back on us if there's issues or they're not good enough. So
Yeah, which leads me into the next question. So when you obviously take the therapist, they've done the Armonia training. How do you then add on the Champneys element to that? Is that what you do afterwards once they've completed like the massage or facial? You Champneys them, I guess.
yeah, we do. So for an example, but it's also really difficult because it's like at college when you learn a massage, you're
Mm,
then going to get tested on that massage. However, we know in industry that, we take out the hacking, we take out the cupping, all of that kind of thing. So it's really difficult because they get taught a way to massage, and we don't want to change that and say, actually, when you're in work, do this. However,
okay.
what we do is give them all the extra touches, like the prescriptions, the meet and greet, the consultation, the pillow spray, all the things that is a Champneys extra added touch. And
Yeah.
then their massage is their massage. Because
Right.
the worst thing is to completely confuse them, or they'll
Yeah.
learn their facial massage with Diane, which is your standard college massage that you need to have all your certain things in, and we come back and say, don't do that, don't do that, this is how we do it here. So we have to treat them a little bit differently, because they need to be practicing what they're going to be examined on.
Mm. And
So,
then so they qualify, and then afterwards so you
and
do
then they
it, you
go on
add your
our training.
touches.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. That took
Because
a while
otherwise
to
it would
get
be
to grips as
confusing.
well. And we made lots of mistakes, like in the first cohort, we didn't do that. And we've made mistakes as we've gone along, and then they're coming back and say, you can't do it like that in the spa. But actually, you need to have a bit of leeway, because they are apprentices and the guests know they're apprentices, so they just have to have a bit of a different approach.
So how do you advertise that then? You've said that you let the guests know that it's an apprentice. Do you have that on the treatment menu? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, we don't have it on the menu. You can't pre-book.
Mm.
So it's basically on the day. So a lot of the time we
Ah,
can be
okay.
fully booked. A lot of the time we have guests that our treatment prices are out their budget, so they'll generally get booked. And there's always there's many guests that wouldn't book an apprentice, but there's guests that maybe have never had a massage before, and actually they feel more comfortable having an apprentice. So you know, those guests that we perhaps do miss because they haven't got the budget to spend £120 an hour, we're still, delivering a service to them. So it kind of makes it so that massage and treatments are available to every walk of life.
way of doing it. So you don't have it on the
Yeah,
treatment menu. The guest
no,
just comes to reception and you say, look, we've got availability for an apprentice trained treatment and this is what we've got available. That's
yeah.
such a good way of
And
doing
you
it.
can also monitor the guests. Like our team know those are a bit like, oh, I don't know if I, and then you can be like, well, actually, we have an apprentice. So you can monitor the guest as to whether who would like to, have that. Obviously, we don't want to always push our 50% off treatments, but who's going to book it and who's not
Yeah, oh,
from there.
brilliant.
Just
Uh, That's such good. That's such a good thing to know because I think the revenue side of it, like you were saying, is really important. But also knowing how you can get them in front of guests without affecting your sort of your standards, your company luxury standards or treatments. By being just open and honest with guests, it works, doesn't it? People will
yeah,
book it if you get the right guest.
yeah, exactly.
Laura, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you feel we should add before we go? Or, obviously, clearly you enjoy having apprentices. That really shines through.
Yeah, they're my I don't have kids, so they're like my kids. But I
You have a lot of kids.
a lot of kids, been busy. I think it's a very rewarding, is what I would say. And you get them when they're 16. 3 years later, they're 19. I've seen so many girls like blossom from this meek, like child to this confident woman, and it's actually really rewarding. And I go to all their graduations, I see them on day one, I have a call with them on day one. I'm very involved, and it's so nice to see that journey, and it's rewarding.
Oh,
That's what I would
I
like
think
everyone to know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I think like there's business reasons, there's personal reasons because it's rewarding. And
Mm.
I really hope that if we inspire one person to, or two people or three people, we can start to get more of a movement into the apprenticeship side of training.
And actually also it's helped with my recruitment crisis.
Yeah,
That's the biggest thing. I don't
yeah.
have such a recruitment crisis as I did before I had this huge group of apprentices, so
Yeah, and you're getting the right recruits. That's the thing, isn't it? I think, like we were saying earlier, that there's that gap between college and first job. Whereas with this, they're in the first job, you've got them from day one, and they're doing the training, and you've
yeah,
got the
they're
revenue coming in.
homegrown. You get to mold
Mm.
them from day one. They don't pick up any bad habits. So it is, a great way to support recruitment.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you so much, Laura. I really
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time today. Thank you.